It's confirmed. One country has started bringing in the beast system. October 27, 2025. The European Union made an announcement that very few understand. You will be shocked by 11 revelations about Europe's digital identity system that match biblical prophecy with terrifying precision. Discovery 1. The regulation that changed everything. All right, let's start with what actually happened. The EIDAS 2.0 regulation. EIDAS stands for Electronic Identification, Authentication, and Trust Services. The original version was adopted in 2014 and established basic rules for digital signatures and electronic identification across EU member states. But the 2.0 version? That's a completely different beast. EIDAS 2.0 was officially adopted and entered into force in May 2024. And buried in that regulation is a mandate that fundamentally transforms how identity, commerce, and daily life will function in Europe. Here's the core requirement. Every EU member state must create and offer a European digital identity wallet, called the EUDI wallet, to all citizens, residents, and businesses operating within its borders. This isn't a suggestion. This isn't an optional program that countries can choose to participate in or ignore. This is a legal obligation. Every single European Union member state must build this infrastructure, and they have until December 2026 to do it. The EUDI wallet is a free mobile application that functions as a digital vault for your identity and credentials. Think of it like Apple Wallet or Google Pay, but instead of just storing credit cards and boarding passes, it stores everything. Your government-issued ID, your driver's license, your passport, your social security information, your educational diplomas, and professional certifications. We're currently in the pilot phase. As of October 2025, there are 4 large-scale pilot programs running across Europe, funded directly by the European Commission. These pilots are testing real-world applications. And on October 16, 2025, just 2 weeks ago, the EU held a major seminar in Brussels, bringing together banks, payment processors, technology companies, and government officials to discuss how to integrate the EUDI wallet into existing financial infrastructure. By December 2026, 14 months from now, every one of the 27 EU member states must offer at least one version of the EUDI wallet to all citizens, residents, and businesses. Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Poland, Romania, Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Portugal, Sweden, Austria, Hungary, all of them. 450 million people will have access to this wallet. But here's what makes this phase critical. It's not just that the wallets will be available. It's that public services must accept them. Starting in December 2026, if you show up at a government office, tax agency, social services, passport office, whatever, and you present your EUDI wallet for identification or authentication, they are legally required to accept it. No more, "Sorry, we only take physical IDs." No more, "Our system doesn't work with that." If you have the wallet, they have to take it. This creates the first level of necessity, because once government services accept it, once it becomes the easier way to interact with bureaucracy, people will start using it. But Phase 2 is just the setup. Phase 3 is where the control really kicks in. By December 2027, 26 months from now, private sector companies in specific regulated industries must accept the EUDI wallet. Who's included in this mandate? banks and financial institutions. Under the EU's Payment Services Directive, PSD2, any bank operating in Europe must accept the wallet for identity verification and authentication. Now, the EU will tell you that use of the wallet is voluntary for citizens. Companies can't deny you a service just because you don't have the wallet. But that's a lie by omission. Because if every bank requires digital verification through the wallet, if every employer checks credentials through the wallet, if every essential service integrates the wallet as the primary authentication method, what choice do you really have? You can technically refuse to use it, just like you can technically refuse to use a computer or a smartphone. But good luck functioning in modern society without one. If this is just about digital convenience, why the rush? Why the mandatory deadlines? Why the legal penalties for non-compliance? And why does it look exactly like the first phase of a system the Bible warned about? Discovery 2. The 27 Nations with One Mind. Now I want you to think about something that should be impossible. Getting 27 European nations to agree on anything is notoriously difficult. France and Germany have different priorities. Eastern European countries clash with Western Europe on policy. Southern Europe fights with Northern Europe over economics. The EU is famous for endless debates, bureaucratic gridlock, and nationalist resistance to centralized authority. And yet, somehow, all 27 member states agreed to IDAS 2.0. All 27 agreed to build the EUDI wallet. All 27 agreed to mandatory deadlines. No major opposition. No countries opting out. No significant resistance. How is that possible? Biblical parallel. Turn in your Bible to Revelation chapter 17. This is the vision of the woman riding the beast, Babylon the Great, drunk on the blood of the saints. And in verse 12, John sees something specific about the political structure of the end times. Revelation 17:12-13. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These have one mind. 10 kings, 10 kingdoms, 10 power centers, and they all have one mind. They surrender their sovereignty. They give their power and strength to the beast. One unified system, one central authority, one mind. Now, the EU currently has 27 member states, not 10. But the EU started with 10 founding members. These have one mind. France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, nations that fought wars against each other for centuries, now submitting to unified regulations, centralized control, standardized systems. And nowhere is that unity more visible than in the EUDI wallet. This isn't science fiction. This is how programmable currency works. China already has this system operational with the digital yuan. They're using it to enforce social credit scores, restrict purchases based on behavior, and control economic activity. And Europe is building the same infrastructure. Discovery 4. Revelation 13 coming to life. All right, we need to talk about what the Bible actually says. Because everything I've shown you so far, the digital wallet, the mandatory timelines, the unified system, the programmable currency, it all sounds ominous. But is it actually biblical? Is this really the fulfillment of prophecy? Or am I just cherry-picking scary-sounding policies and connecting them to Scripture through confirmation bias? Let me read you what the Apostle John saw in his vision 2,000 years ago, and you tell me if this sounds familiar. The prophecy. Revelation 13:16-18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Read that again carefully. He causeth all, not some, not a few, all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, universal, every class, every status, everyone, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. A mark, something that identifies you, something associated with the body, specifically the right hand or the forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark. Economic control. You can't participate in commerce without the mark. Can't buy food. Can't sell your labor. Can't access the economic system. The mark becomes the gateway to survival. Detail 1. He causeth all. The EU DI wallet isn't optional for member states. It's not optional for public services. It's not optional for banks and regulated industries. By December 2027, every institution you need to interact with to function in European society is required to integrate this system. 450 million people across 27 nations, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. If you want to work, you need verified credentials in the wallet. If you want to access healthcare, you need records in the wallet. If you want to bank, you need identity in the wallet. If you want to travel, you need documents in the wallet. The system is designed to be universal. No man might buy or sell. This is the key, because digital identity alone isn't enough. Verification alone isn't enough. But when you combine digital identity with a central bank digital currency, when you make the wallet the gateway to both identity and money, then you have complete control over buying and selling. Without the wallet, you can't access your digital euros. Without the wallet, you can't verify your identity for banking. Without the wallet, you can't authorize transactions. No wallet equals no buying or selling. And because cash is being phased out, because physical currency is being replaced by digital, because the system is moving towards CBDC-only transactions, the wallet becomes the only way to participate in the economy. Just like Revelation 13 describes. Detail 4. The progression pattern. Now, I need to be clear about something. The EU DI wallet is not the mark of the beast. Not yet. Because Revelation 13 includes one more detail that hasn't been implemented. Worship. Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. The mark of the beast isn't just an economic control system. It's a religious loyalty test. Taking the mark means worshiping the beast, pledging allegiance to the Antichrist, rejecting God. And that element isn't part of the EU DI wallet. There's no religious component, no worship requirement. So what we're watching right now isn't the mark itself. It's the infrastructure for the mark. Let me show you the progression. Stage 1. Introduce as convenience. We are here. Look how easy this makes your life. One app for everything. No more carrying documents. Stage 2. Make it available everywhere. December 2026. Public services accept it. companies integrate it. It becomes the standard. Stage 3. Make it necessary for essential services. December 2027. Banking requires it. Employment requires it. Healthcare requires it. You can't function without it. Stage 4. Make it impossible to function without it. Post-2028, cash is phased out. Digital currency launches. The wallet becomes the only access point to the economy. Stage 5. Tie it to worship and allegiance. Tribulation. The Antichrist demands worship. The system that started as convenience becomes a loyalty test. Refuse to worship, lose access to everything. We're currently in stages 1 to 3. We're watching stages 4 and 5 being built in real time. The Antichrist doesn't need to create this system from scratch. It's already being built for him. All he has to do is take control of the existing infrastructure and add the worship component. And here's what should make you pay attention to the timelines. The EUDI wallet is mandatory by December 2027. That's 26 months away. We're not talking about distant future prophecy. We're talking about a system that will be fully operational and mandatory within 3 years. And the digital euro, the programmable currency that gives total economic control, launches around the same time. By 2028, Europe will have everything in place. A unified digital identity, a programmable digital currency, universal mandatory integration, complete economic control. The only missing piece is the Antichrist himself. But the throne is being prepared. The control system is being built. The infrastructure is almost complete. And when he appears, when the man of sin is revealed, when the beast rises to power, he won't need to convince people to adopt a new system. He'll just take over the system that already exists. Discovery 5. Other prophecies converging. Now, Revelation 13 isn't the only biblical prophecy that describes an end-times economic and political control system. Throughout the Old and New Testaments, multiple prophets saw visions of a final world government, a unified system of control, and a beast kingdom that would rule the earth before Christ's return. And when you read those prophecies and then look at what's happening in Europe right now, the parallels are undeniable. Daniel 7, the fourth beast. Daniel chapter 7 describes Daniel's vision of 4 beasts representing 4 kingdoms. The fourth beast is particularly terrifying. Daniel 7:23. Thus he said, "The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces." The fourth kingdom will be diverse from all kingdoms, different from anything that's come before, more powerful, more pervasive, and it will devour the whole earth. Not just one region, not just one continent, the whole earth. Now, historically, the fourth kingdom has been identified as Rome. The Roman Empire conquered the known world, established unprecedented control systems, and created infrastructure that lasted for centuries. But Rome fell. The Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 AD. Except it didn't really fall. It transformed. The Eastern Roman Empire continued as Byzantium until 1453. And the territories of the old Roman Empire, they became modern Europe. The European Union occupies almost the exact same geography as the Roman Empire at its height. And what we're watching now is the revival of centralized control over that same territory. A digital empire, a technological beast, different from all kingdoms that came before. And the EUDI wallet? It's the control mechanism for that beast kingdom. Here's another prophecy that often gets overlooked in discussions about end times economics, but it's incredibly relevant. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-3. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. When they shall say, Peace and safety. What's the EU's pitch for the digital wallet? Security fraud prevention, safe cross-border transactions, protection against identity theft, convenient and secure digital services, peace and safety. And what's the pitch for the digital euro? Financial stability, protection from foreign interference, sovereign European payments, safe, trusted, secure currency, peace and safety. Then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Not gradually, not predictably, suddenly, like labor pains on a woman with child. And once it begins, there's no escape. The system that was sold as security becomes a prison. The infrastructure that promised convenience becomes control. The digital wallet that was supposed to protect your privacy becomes the tool of total surveillance. Peace and safety. And then destruction. A fourth kingdom that's different from all others. Daniel 7. A digital empire unlike anything in history. Checkmark. 10 horns kings giving power to a central authority. Daniel 7, Revelation 17. European nations surrendering sovereignty to EU checkmark. A unified mind among nations, Revelation 17:13. 27 nations all implementing the same system with no opposition checkmark. Economic control over buying and selling, Revelation 13. Digital wallet plus CBDC equals complete control checkmark. Universal system affecting all classes, Revelation 13:16. Mandatory integration across all sectors and all people checkmark. Sold as peace and safety before sudden destruction. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. EU's security pitch before control activates checkmark. This isn't one prophecy being loosely interpreted. This is multiple prophecies from multiple books written by multiple authors over hundreds of years, all describing the same end times system. And all of them match what's being built in Europe right now. Discovery 6. Global precedent. Now, if you're still skeptical about whether a digital identity system can really become mandatory in practice even when it's voluntary in law, let me show you what's already happened. Because Europe isn't pioneering this. They're copying a model that's already been tested on over 1 billion people. India's Aadhaar system. What is Aadhaar? Aadhaar is a 12-digit unique identity number issued by the Indian government to all residents of India. It's linked to biometric data, fingerprints, and iris scans. When you enroll in Aadhaar, you provide your biometric data, and that data is stored in a centralized government database. Your Aadhaar number becomes your universal identifier across all government and private services. The program launched in 2009. By 2025, over 1.3 billion people are enrolled, more than 95% of India's population. And here's the key detail. Aadhaar is officially voluntary. The Indian Supreme Court ruled in 2018 that Aadhaar cannot be mandatory for most services. The government cannot force you to enroll. But in practice, it's required for almost everything. how voluntary became necessary. When Aadhaar launched, it was sold as a convenience for accessing government subsidies and benefits. Poor people could use it to prove their identity and receive welfare payments, food rations, pensions. That sounds great, right? Helping the poor access services. But then the scope expanded. Want to open a bank account? Need Aadhaar? Want a mobile phone SIM card? Need Aadhaar. Want to file taxes? Need Aadhaar. Want to enroll your child in school? Need Aadhaar. Want a driver's license? Need Aadhaar. Want to register property? Need Aadhaar. Want to get married? Official government registration? Need Aadhaar. Within a few years, Aadhaar went from voluntary program for welfare recipients to required for basically everything. And even though the Supreme Court ruled it can't be mandatory, private companies and state governments still require it because there's no alternative system that works as smoothly. So technically, Aadhaar is voluntary. Practically, it's compulsory. What happened to people who couldn't enroll? And here's where it gets dark. Not everyone can enroll in Aadhaar. Elderly people with worn fingerprints, manual laborers whose hands are too damaged for fingerprint scanners, people with eye conditions that prevent iris scanning. What happens to them? They're locked out of banking, locked out of benefits, locked out of essential services. There have been documented cases of elderly pensioners, and then there's the privacy nightmare. India's Aadhaar database, containing biometric data for 1.3 billion people, has been breached multiple times. In 2018, journalists discovered that Aadhaar data was being sold on WhatsApp for as little as 500 rupees, about $6. You could buy access to anyone's Aadhaar information, including their photo, fingerprints, and address. In 2019, security researchers found that the Aadhaar database was accessible through a simple SQL injection attack. Any moderately skilled hacker could access the entire database. The government denied these breaches, then admitted them, then claimed they fixed the problems. And then more breaches were discovered. When you centralize biometric data for over 1 billion people in a government database, you create the world's most valuable target for hackers, criminals, and foreign intelligence agencies. And of course, Aadhaar gives the Indian government unprecedented surveillance capabilities. Every time you use your Aadhaar to authenticate, the government knows. Every transaction, every service access, every location. The government can track where you are, what you're doing, who you're interacting with. And because Aadhaar is linked to your bank account, the government can see every rupee you earn and every rupee you spend. Total financial surveillance, total identity tracking, total control. So why am I telling you about India's Aadhaar system? Because Europe is following the exact same playbook. Introduce the system as voluntary and convenient. Integrate it into essential services so it becomes necessary in practice. Expand the scope until it's required for everything. Lock out people who can't or won't comply. Create a centralized database that becomes a surveillance and hacking target. Give the government total visibility into identity, finances, and behavior. And because Aadhaar is linked to your bank account, the government can see every rupee you earn and every rupee you spend. Total financial surveillance, total identity tracking, total control. The warning for Europe. So why am I telling you about India's Aadhaar system? Because Europe is following the exact same playbook. Introduce the system as voluntary and convenient. Integrate it into essential services so it becomes necessary in practice. Expand the scope until it's required for everything. Lock out people who can't or won't comply. Create a centralized database that becomes a surveillance and hacking target. Give the government total visibility into identity, finances, and behavior. India proved the model works. India proved that people will accept it. India proved that voluntary can become compulsory without changing the law. And now Europe is scaling that model to 450 million people with even more sophisticated technology. But it's not just India, and it's not just Europe. This is a global movement. The United Nations has a Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 16.9, that explicitly calls for legal identity for all by 2030. The World Bank is funding digital identity programs in developing nations around the world. The EUDI wallet is being designed with international interoperability in mind, meaning it's intended to work not just across Europe, but potentially globally. China already has a comprehensive digital ID system linked to social credit scores. India has Aadhaar covering 1.3 billion people. Europe is implementing EUDI wallet for 450 million people. The UK is rolling out BritCard. Canada, Australia, and other developed nations are exploring similar systems. And once these regional systems are all operational, the next step is integration, a global digital identity system, interoperable across borders, accessible worldwide. And once it's global, there's nowhere left to run. What comes next? All right, let's talk about what happens next. Because we're not dealing with distant future prophecy. We're dealing with a very specific timeline with hard deadlines. And those deadlines are approaching fast. December 2026, the first checkpoint. In 14 months, December 2026, all 27 EU member states must offer the EUDI wallet to all citizens and residents. This isn't a goal. It's not a target. It's a legal requirement with enforcement mechanisms. If a member state fails to comply, they face EU sanctions and fines. So by the end of 2026, 450 million people will have access to download and use a digital identity wallet. And public services across Europe will be required to accept it. That's the first checkpoint. The wallet becomes available and government integrated. Mid-2026, pilots become live services. But remember the October 27th announcement? The new funding to accelerate rollout? The goal is to push pilot programs into live services by mid-2026. That means 6 months from now, the testing phase ends, and the wallet becomes operational for real-world use across multiple sectors. Not just government services, banking, healthcare, education, transportation. By summer 2026, the infrastructure will be live. December 2027, the second checkpoint. Then, 26 months from now, December 2027, the second checkpoint hits. Private sector companies in regulated industries must integrate the EUDI wallet and accept it for authentication and transactions. Banks, telecoms, health systems, energy providers, transportation, employment. No opt-out, no exceptions, mandatory integration. And that's when the voluntary nature of the system collapses. Because yes, you technically don't have to use the wallet, but good luck banking without it. Good luck getting a job without verified credentials. Good luck accessing any essential service without it. Voluntary in theory, impossible to avoid in practice. And then, shortly after December 2027, the digital euro launches. The European Central Bank hasn't announced an exact date yet, but the preparation phase ends October 2025, this month, and the target for full operational capability is 2028. So within 12 to 18 months after the wallet becomes mandatory for private sector services, the programmable digital currency goes live. And that currency will be accessed through the wallet. Identity verification and payment authorization unified in one system. And at that point, the infrastructure is complete. The tribulation infrastructure. Now, let me be very clear about something. I'm not saying the tribulation begins in 2028. I'm not setting dates for the rapture or the revealing of the Antichrist or the start of the 7-year period. What I am saying is this: by 2028, the infrastructure for the mark of the beast will be operational. All the Antichrist needs to do is take control of the existing system and add the worship requirement. He doesn't need to invent new technology. He doesn't need to convince people to adopt a new system. He doesn't need to build control mechanisms from scratch. The system will already exist, fully functional, universally integrated, controlling access to identity, money, employment, and essential services. All he needs is a crisis, an economic collapse, a cyber attack, and the moment that crisis hits, the voluntary system becomes mandatory. The convenience system becomes a control system. The identity verification becomes loyalty verification. Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Right now, there's no worship requirement, but the mechanism for enforcement is being built. A system where refusal means economic exclusion, where non-compliance means you can't buy or sell, where resistance means you're locked out of society. Add the worship requirement, and you have the mark of the beast. Why this generation? And here's why this is happening now, in our generation, and not 100 years ago or 100 years from now. The technology only recently became possible. You couldn't implement a global digital identity system in 1925. The technology didn't exist. Computers didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. Biometric scanners didn't exist. You couldn't implement a programmable digital currency in 1950. Electronic banking didn't exist. Digital transactions didn't exist. You couldn't implement a universal economic control system in 1975. Credit cards were just becoming common. There was no infrastructure for real-time verification across borders. But in 2025, we have smartphones. We have biometric authentication. We have high-speed internet. We have cloud computing. We have AI-powered verification systems. We have blockchain technology for digital currencies. Every piece of technology needed for Revelation 13's economic control system now exists. And not just exists, it's mature, it's tested, it's ready to deploy at scale. The convergence. But it's not just technology. Israel was reborn as a nation in 1948, for the first time in 2,000 years. Jerusalem came under Israeli control in 1967, for the first time since 70 AD. The Abraham Accords were signed in 2020, Arab nations normalizing relations with Israel. The Third Temple is being prepared. Red heifer sacrifices, training of Levitical priests, plans for construction. Peace deals are being brokered, the exact covenant with many that Daniel prophesied. Global government institutions exist: UN, EU, WHO, World Bank, IMF. And now, the economic control infrastructure is being built. It's all converging, simultaneously, in our lifetime. Jesus said in Luke 21:28, "And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." When these things begin to come to pass, not when they're complete, when they begin. We're watching the beginning, the infrastructure phase, the setup. And if the setup is this far along, how close is the main event? Discovery. 11. The enemy behind the policy. All right, we've spent a lot of time talking about technology, regulations, timelines, and control systems. But I need you to understand something that goes deeper than policy. This isn't just bureaucracy. This isn't just incompetent governments making bad decisions. This isn't just tech companies seeking profit. This is spiritual warfare. Why they're doing this. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. The EU officials who wrote EIDAS 2.0, they're not the real enemy. They're pawns. The bankers pushing for CBDCS, they're not the real enemy. They're tools. The tech companies building the infrastructure, they're not the real enemy. They're being used. The real enemy is Satan, and he knows his time is short. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. He knoweth that he hath but a short time. Satan knows the clock is running out. He knows Christ is returning. He knows the kingdom of God is coming. So he's preparing the world for his counterfeit Christ, the Antichrist. And part of that preparation is building the control systems that the Antichrist will need to rule. The deception strategy. Here's how Satan operates. He never reveals his true intentions up front. He always sells evil as good, slavery as freedom, control as security. 2 Corinthians 11:14. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. An angel of light. He doesn't show up with horns and a pitchfork. He shows up offering solutions, progress, safety, convenience. But underneath the marketing, control, surveillance, exclusion, and the deception works because people want to believe in progress. They want to believe technology makes life better. They want to believe governments are trying to help. So they accept the wallet. They download the app. They integrate it into their lives. And by the time they realize what they've given up, the trap has closed. The strong delusion. And here's what's even more terrifying. The Bible says this deception will be supernaturally enhanced. 2 Thessalonians 2:10-11. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. God shall send them strong delusion. Those who reject the truth, those who refuse to love and believe the gospel, God will allow them to be deceived. Not just naturally deceived, supernaturally deluded. They will look at the beast system and see salvation. They will look at the Antichrist and see their Messiah. They will look at the mark and see freedom. And they will take it willingly, eagerly, convinced they're doing the right thing. That's why preaching the gospel now is so critical. That's why warning people now matters. Because once the strong delusion is sent, once the tribulation begins, once the deception is in full force, people won't be able to see clearly. But right now, before the delusion, before the tribulation, people can still hear the truth. The remnant's response. So what's the response for those who see what's happening? Matthew 24:13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Endure unto the end. Don't take the mark. Even if it means you can't buy food. Even if it means you lose your job. Even if it means persecution and death. Because the mark isn't just an economic convenience, it's a spiritual declaration of allegiance. Revelation 14:9-11. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up for ever and ever. And they have no rest, day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Taking the mark means eternal damnation, no forgiveness, no second chance. So endure, refuse, stay faithful. Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. The patience of the saints. Endurance, faithfulness, refusal to compromise. That's the remnant's response. And yes, it might cost you your life. Revelation makes that clear. Revelation 24. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Beheaded for refusing the mark, martyred for faithfulness. But notice what happens next. They lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Physical death isn't the end. Eternity is what matters. And those who refuse the mark, who endure unto death, will reign with Christ. That's the promise. What just happened in the UK is in the Bible. November 3rd, 2025. While most of the world was focused on elections, conflicts, and economic news, something happened in the United Kingdom that stopped prophetic watchers dead in their tracks. The UK government made an announcement. You will be shocked when you discover 5 findings about this announcement. Discovery 1. The announcement that changed everything. November 3rd, 2025. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and Digital Minister Peter Kyle stand before the cameras and announce the Brit card. Let me read you the exact description from the government's press release, because every word matters here. Brit card is a free, government-issued digital identity intended to become mandatory for all UK citizens and legal residents within the next 18 to 24 months. Brit card will serve as the cornerstone of a unified national identity infrastructure, integrating previously fragmented systems, NHS numbers, driving licenses, tax IDs, into a single biometric-linked digital profile. Read that again. A single biometric-linked digital profile. Everything about you connected to your biological data, managed by the government, soon to be mandatory. They're not saying, we're creating a totalitarian control grid. They're saying, we're making life more convenient. We're protecting you from fraud. We're streamlining services. But let me show you what this system actually is. Let me break down the features, because this is where it gets very, very concerning. Feature number 1, biometric enrollment. To get a Brit card, you must undergo biometric enrollment. That means facial recognition scan and fingerprint scan. These are required, not optional, required. You'll either go in person to a post office to have these scans done, or you'll use a certified app that captures your facial biometrics and fingerprints through your smartphone camera and screen. Your face, your fingerprints, captured, stored, linked permanently to your identity. Now, think about the biblical description we're going to examine in Discovery 2. The mark on the right hand or the forehead. Keep that in mind as we go through this. Feature number 2, centralized database. All of this data, your biometrics, your personal information, your entire identity, will be stored in what they're calling the National Identity Register, version 2 or NIR2. Now, this is significant because the UK actually tried to do this before. In 2006, they attempted to create a national ID card system with a central database. It was massively unpopular. Civil liberties groups protested, and it was eventually scrapped in 2010. So why are they trying again? And why now? The government says technology has improved. Security is better. The threats are greater. We need this for protection. But here's what's actually different this time. The infrastructure exists now. The digital systems are in place. The banking integration is ready. The surveillance technology has matured. And most importantly, they've learned how to sell it better. Feature number 3, mandatory integration. This is where it gets really invasive. BritCard isn't just an ID card you carry in your wallet. It's mandatory integration with every essential service in your life. Banking. You'll need BritCard to open a bank account, get a mortgage, or conduct large cash transactions. NHS and health records. Your medical history, prescriptions, treatment records, all connected to BritCard. Travel. E-gates at airports, train stations, rail passes, all requiring BritCard verification. Employment and benefits. You won't be able to work legally or receive government assistance without BritCard. Online age verification. Under Ofcom rules, accessing certain websites and services will require BritCard authentication. Let me emphasize this. Every essential service, every part of normal life, all connected, all controlled through this single system. Feature number 4, the timeline. Now, here's where the government's strategy becomes clear. They're not implementing this all at once. They're doing it in phases. Phase 1, 2026. Voluntary opt-in with incentives. They'll offer faster services, easier access, convenience benefits for early adopters. Get people used to it. Make it seem normal. Phase 2, 2027, first quarter. Required for new bank accounts, mortgages, and large cash transactions. Now it's not voluntary anymore, but they'll say, well, you can still function without it. Just not as easily. Phase 3, 2028, full mandate. No BritCard equals no access to essential services. You cannot work. You cannot bank. You cannot travel. You cannot function in society. Keep that timeline in mind. 2026 to 2028. 3 years from voluntary to mandatory. From convenience to control. From optional to essential for survival. Feature number 5. real-time tracking. And here's the feature they're not advertising heavily, but it's in the technical specifications. Location metadata will be logged when BritCard is used. Every time you tap in on the tube, every time you verify your identity at a bank, every time you access a government service, your location is recorded. Your movements are tracked. Your patterns are analyzed. They'll say it's for security, to prevent fraud, to catch criminals. And there is some truth to that. But the capability exists for total surveillance, for knowing where every person is at every moment, for tracking, monitoring, and controlling the entire population. Now, let me show you the full picture of what this creates. Imagine a system where your biological data, face and fingerprints, is stored in a government database. Every financial transaction requires verification through this system. Every essential service, banking, healthcare, travel, employment, is connected. Non-compliance results in automatic exclusion from society. Does that sound like anything you've read about in the Bible? But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go to Scripture. Discovery 2. The Biblical Prophecy, Revelation 13. Turn with me to Revelation chapter 13. We're going to read verses 16 through 18, and I want you to pay attention to every single detail, because what you're about to read isn't ancient history, it's current events. Revelation 13, 16 to 18. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. Let me break down exactly what John is describing here, phrase by phrase, because this prophecy has been studied, debated, and speculated about for nearly 2,000 years. And suddenly, in November 2025, it's not speculative anymore. It's policy. It also forced all people. The "it" here refers back to the second beast described earlier in Revelation 13. This beast rises from the earth, has authority from the first beast, the Antichrist, and acts as the enforcer of the mark system. This is the false prophet. This is the religious/political figure who implements the control system on behalf of the Antichrist. But notice what John says: forced all people, not some people, not volunteers, not those who choose to participate. All people, universal, mandatory, enforced, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave. John is emphasizing that no one escapes this system. It doesn't matter if you're powerful or powerless, wealthy or destitute, in a position of authority or totally subjugated. Everyone is subject to the same requirement. This is important because throughout history, there have always been ways for the elite to opt out of inconvenient systems. Laws that apply to common people, but not to rulers. Requirements that affect the poor, but not the rich. But the mark system is different. It's universal. Every class, every status, every level of society, all people will be forced to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads. Now we get to the specific implementation. A mark. The Greek word is charagma, which can mean a stamp, an engraving, a brand, or an etching, something visible or embedded. Location, right hand or forehead. These are very specific body parts. Not the left hand, not the arm, not the chest, the right hand or the forehead. Why these locations? There are several theories. The hand is used for work and transactions. The forehead is visible and associated with identity and allegiance. These are the most practical locations for a system designed to control commerce and verify identity. But here's what's critical. This is described as something on or in the body. It's not a card you carry. It's not a password you memorize. It's something physically connected to your biological being, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark. Here's the purpose. Here's the function. Here's why the mark exists. Economic control. No one can buy or sell without it. That means you can't purchase food. You can't pay rent. You can't receive a salary. You can't access your savings. You can't conduct any economic transaction whatsoever. Total economic exclusion. Complete financial lockout. Absolute control over who gets to participate in commerce and who doesn't. This isn't just inconvenient. This is survival-level control. If you can't buy food, you starve. If you can't pay for shelter, you're homeless. If you can't access money, you're completely dependent on those who have the mark. Which is the name of the beast, or the number of its name? The mark itself contains identifying information, either the name of the beast, the Antichrist, or the number associated with his name. This means the mark is both a control mechanism and a declaration of allegiance. Taking the mark isn't just participating in an economic system. It's declaring loyalty to the beast. It's identifying yourself as belonging to him. And that's why, later in Revelation, those who take the mark face eternal judgment. It's not just a practical decision. It's a spiritual choice with eternal consequences. This calls for wisdom. John is telling us that understanding this prophecy requires wisdom. It requires insight. It requires careful thought and spiritual discernment. For 2,000 years, believers have tried to figure out what this mark would be. Every generation has had its theories. Every era has had its candidates. The Roman Empire? The mark was loyalty to Caesar. Every single generation has looked at the technology and systems of their time and said, this could be the mark. And every single time, it wasn't quite right. The parallels were there, but the full picture didn't match. Some elements fit, but others didn't. Until now. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. This is the most famous part of the prophecy. 666. The number of the beast. The number of a man. For centuries, people have used gematria, the practice of assigning numerical values to letters, to try to identify the Antichrist by calculating whose name equals 666. Nero Caesar, various popes, countless others. But here's what we need to understand about this number. It's not just a clue for identifying the Antichrist, it's part of the mark system itself. The mark contains either the name or the number. So the number 666 is connected to how the system functions, how it identifies people, how it tracks and controls. Now, before we move on, I need to address something directly. I am not saying Brit card is the mark of the beast. Let me be very clear about that. The actual mark of the beast will be implemented by the Antichrist during the tribulation period, after the rapture of the church. But here's what I am saying. Brit card is the infrastructure. It's the system. It's the framework. Think of it this way. If you were going to build a house, you'd start with the foundation, the framework, the infrastructure. You'd run the electrical wiring, install the plumbing, build the structure. And then, at the very end, you'd move in and actually live there. That's what we're seeing with Brit card. The infrastructure is being built, the framework is being put in place, the wiring is being installed, the system is being tested and implemented. And when the Antichrist arrives, he won't have to build this system from scratch. It will already exist. He'll just have to take control of it, rebrand it, and require allegiance to him as a condition of participation. The house is being built right now. The Antichrist just hasn't moved in yet. But let me show you how precise the parallels are. Let me take you through, point by point, how Britcard maps onto the Revelation 13 prophecy. And I think you're going to be stunned by how exact the connections are. Discovery. 3. The undeniable parallels. I'm going to present this as a direct comparison. On one side, the biblical description from Revelation 13. On the other side, the Britcard features announced November 3rd. And I want you to judge for yourself whether these parallels are coincidence or something more. Parallel number 1. Mandatory for all people. Biblical text. Forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave. Britcard reality. Mandatory for all UK citizens and legal residents by 2028. No exceptions. The government has explicitly stated that by 2028, you cannot access essential services without Britcard. Doesn't matter if you're wealthy or poor. Doesn't matter if you're a member of parliament or unemployed. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner or a student. Everyone must have Britcard. The parallel is exact. Universal mandatory participation. Parallel number 2. Cannot buy or sell without it. Biblical text. So that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark. Britcard reality. Starting in 2027 Q1, you cannot open a bank account, get a mortgage, or conduct large cash transactions without Britcard. By 2028, full mandate means no access to employment, banking, or financial services. Let me be explicit about what this means. If you refuse Britcard, you cannot get paid for work. Employment requires Britcard. You cannot access your existing bank accounts. Banking integration is mandatory. You cannot purchase property or sign rental agreements. You cannot receive government benefits or pensions. You cannot legally conduct business transactions. In other words, you cannot buy or sell, exactly as Revelation describes. But wait, someone might say, you can still use cash. Can you? For how long? And how do you get cash if you can't access your bank account? How do you earn cash if employers require Britcard to pay you? The reality is, refusal of Britcard means complete economic exclusion. Just like refusal of the mark will mean complete economic exclusion. The parallel is undeniable. And here's the detail that has prophecy watchers extremely concerned. Each Britcard is linked to a unique 18-digit national identity number called NIN2. 18 digits. That's 6 plus 6 plus 6. Now, I know numerology can be taken too far. I know people can find patterns anywhere if they look hard enough, but this isn't obscure. This isn't hidden. The national identity number is literally 18 digits, and 18 is 3 sixes. Is that the 666 of Revelation? Not necessarily. In October 2025, the Bank of England confirmed that digital pound wallets, when the central bank digital currency is fully implemented, will require Britcard verification. Let me connect these dots for you. The UK is developing a digital pound, a central bank digital currency, programmable money, money that can be tracked, controlled, restricted, and turned off remotely. And access to this digital currency will require Britcard. So we have a mandatory biometric digital ID, Britcard, a digital currency that requires the ID to access, digital pound. A cashless society being accelerated through payment regulations. A timeline, 2027 to 2028 for full implementation. That's not just infrastructure for a future mark. That's the complete economic control system that Revelation 13 describes, built and ready to deploy. And if you're not concerned yet, if you're still thinking, well, maybe it's just practical governance, let me show you the deception pattern. Because how they're selling this is just as prophetic as what they're actually building. Discovery. 4. The deception pattern, peace and safety. There's another crucial prophetic text that applies to what we're seeing with BritCard, and it's found in Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. While people are saying, peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly, as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Peace and safety. That phrase is the key to understanding how end-times deception works. It's not that the Antichrist will announce himself as evil. It's not that the mark system will be presented as tyranny. It's that evil will be packaged as good. Slavery will be sold as freedom. Control will be marketed as security. Peace and safety. That's the sales pitch. That's the deception. Let me read you the actual marketing language from the government's campaign. BritCard, safer banking, faster travel, fraud-proof identification. Protect yourself and your family from identity theft. Streamline your life with one secure, convenient identity. Peace of mind in a digital world. Peace and safety. Exactly as Paul predicted. But let's look at the Trojan horse strategy they're using. Phase 1. Make it voluntary and appealing. 2026. BritCard is completely optional. It's just for those who want faster, easier access to services. You don't have to get it if you don't want to. But wouldn't your life be easier with it? This is the conditioning phase. Get early adopters. Create social proof. Make it seem normal and desirable. Phase 2. Create inconvenience for non-participants. 2027. Q1. Well, you can still live without BritCard, but you can't open a new bank account, or get a mortgage, or make large purchases easily. But it's still technically voluntary. This is the pressure phase. Make it increasingly difficult to function without the system. Create friction and frustration for those who resist. Phase 3. Make it absolutely mandatory. 2028. Okay, now it's required. No BritCard means no access to anything, but we gave you 2 years to adjust. This is for everyone's safety and security. The trap is sprung. You're either in the system or you're excluded from society. This strategy isn't new. It's been used throughout history to implement unpopular policies. Make it voluntary. Create incentives. Increase pressure. Then mandate compliance. And by the time people realize what's happened, they're already trapped. Now let's look at another prophetic text that describes this exact type of event. 2 Thessalonians 2:9-12. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth but have delighted in wickedness. Signs and wonders that serve the lie. What's the lie? That this system is for your good, that this system is protecting you, that this system is making life better. The technology is amazing. The convenience is real. The security features are impressive. These are the signs and wonders, the technological marvels that make people think this must be good, must be progressive, must be the right direction. But they serve the lie. Matthew 24:4. Jesus' first warning. Let's look at what Jesus himself said about end times deception. Matthew 24:4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. His first warning. Before he talks about wars, famines, earthquakes, persecution, before any of that, the first warning, don't be deceived. Why? Because deception is the primary weapon of the enemy in the last days. The Antichrist doesn't conquer through superior military force alone. He conquers through deception, through lies, through convincing people to voluntarily submit to systems that enslave them. Let me show you one more prophetic text that explains exactly what we're seeing. Daniel 8:25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. By peace shall destroy many. That's the strategy. Not by war, not by obvious oppression, but by peace. By promising safety, security, convenience, and prosperity, he destroys many. They willingly walk into the trap because it's presented as something beneficial. Discovery 5. The global pattern and what comes next. Now, if BritCard was just a UK phenomenon, if it was just one country experimenting with digital identification, that would be concerning enough. But here's what should terrify every person watching prophecy unfold. This isn't just the UK. This is the template. This is the model that's being rolled out globally. Let me show you what's happening simultaneously around the world. The European Union Digital Identity Wallet. In July 2024, the EU passed regulation creating a European Digital Identity Wallet. It's mandatory for all EU member states to offer it by 2026. The features: biometric verification, centralized database, integration with banking, healthcare, and travel, real-time tracking capability. Sound familiar? It's the same system as BritCard. Different name, same function. 27 countries, 450 million people, all moving toward mandatory biometric digital ID simultaneously. The United Nations has a project called ID 2020. The stated goal is to provide digital identity to everyone on Earth by 2030. Everyone on Earth by 2030. They call it providing identity to the marginalized. They say it's about financial inclusion, accessing services, proving who you are. But the end result is the same: a global